Why everybody mad at Latoya for? They call that clout chasing. She was clout chasing off her family. Niggas do it every day. What do you think the shade room is full of? The clout chase. Well, hello there, love bugs. Hello there, bellas. If you have not already done so, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes, you can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, let's continue talking about Jackson Family Values, Memories of Madness by Margaret. You know, we lovingly call her Peggy. That's what we do over here. We get nicknames just to make it a little more fun. Maldonado, not a Jackson. Joseph visited us in Atlanta after he recovered. Because, yeah, he was hospitalized. I can't remember whether it was a heart attack or a stroke. I can't remember. And like I said, I'm not here to read you niggas the entire book. Okay, reading is fundamental. You niggas won't get me a copyright. I remember handing him the miniseries script to read. He refused it, handing it back to me with a shake of his head. I'm sure it's fine, Margaret, he said. In the old days, he would have given the script to one of his flunkies to read and then argued over every word. That summer, Dawn and her mother reappeared. They both came over to our Buckhead house, and I took the opportunity to tell Dawn's mother that the party was over. Jermaine doesn't have the kind of money he used to have. I told the woman while Dawn sat and listened, don't expect any more to be coming your way. Neither Dawn nor her mother put up much of a fight. Actually, there was very little they could say. I had made it clear that I was now controlling the checkbook, and the checkbook was closed. By September 1991, we were headed back to California. Nothing more was said about Word to the Bad, and I certainly was not about to bring it up. I had been spending hours on the phone talking with Catherine about the miniseries, taking care of the nuts and bolts of production on The Jacksons and American Dream. The 5-hour-long form had been sold to the ABC television network for a whopping $10 million, $1 million of which went to the family for the rights to the story. That ain't enough. How the hell is $10 million the whopping? That ain't no money. I don't care if it is 1991. The Jackson story? Ninja, please. And you about to get a little bit of a Michael Jackson story with it? Nigga, please. Because only Catherine and Joseph were now living at Havenhurst. Child, we gonna call that Cirque du Soleil, okay? Because all the tricks and trades and stuff happened at the Havenhurst. That's Cirque du Soleil. Because only Catherine and Joseph were now living at Cirque du Soleil, Jermaine and I were offered our old room back with an extra perk. Catherine told us she would open up Latoya's room to us as well. Since I anticipated working with Catherine on the miniseries anyway, it made sense to call Cirque du Soleil our home once again. Latoya was gone but not forgotten. She had seen to that by releasing her book, Latoya. It was the book the family had been hearing about and fearing for months. The book that was being billed as the most shocking and stirring showbiz story ever told. More correctly, it was a distortion of the truth in Latoya's efforts to attract desperately needed attention. Why everybody mad at Latoya for? They call that clout chasing. She was clout chasing off her family. Niggas do it every day. What do you think the shade room is full of? The clout chase. But okay, dig this part that's coming up. Ooh, Latoya, you bitch you. You's a dirty bitch, Latoya, for this one. Ooh. Much has been written about Latoya and her memoir. What was interesting to me was that the wildest story wasn't in the book at all, but rather was planted by LaToya's husband and manager, Jack Gordon, in Rolling Stone's magazine. The story quoted him as saying that Michael Jackson had offered LaToya $5 million not to write the book, and she declined. It gave family members a big laugh. If Michael had offered his sister that kind of money, everyone said, she would have the cash in her pocket and a padlock on the manuscript. Ninjas on the Shade Room do it every day. Okay? And the people that do it on the Shade Room, they don't get paid no mind. The real story is far more interesting. When LaToya had just begun to outline her memoir soon after leaving Havenhurst back in 1988, Jack approached Jerome Howard, Joseph's business partner, with an offer he wanted to pass along to Catherine. The deal was simple. If Catherine would pay Jack Gordon $5 million, he would see to it that no book was ever published. Jack even offered Jerome a cut. Without accepting a percentage for himself, Jerome took Jack's offer to Catherine, who was repulsed by the entire plan, labeling it outright extortion. The other family members agreed and pushed Catherine into reporting it to the authorities. She met with agents from the Los Angeles Bureau of the FBI and told them about Jack Gordon's extortion plot. In an effort to ensure an airtight case against him, the FBI wanted Catherine to set up a meeting with Jack and wear a wire. At first, Catherine was willing to go along with the plan since it seemed an excellent way to rid the family and LaToya of Gordon's influence, but she eventually backed off because she was afraid Gordon would retaliate. Jack would later try to present the same deal to Michael with even less success. Despite the fact that the family found LaToya's book to be offensive and scandalous, the truth is that much of what LaToya had to say was not that far from wrong. I can believe that. I believe that. Like I said, when we read the LaToya book, up until the part where she met Jack Gordon, I don't know, but I feel it was truth. At the same time LaToya's book was making the rounds, Joyce Ellison was putting the finishing touches on the script for the miniseries. It was quite a paradox to watch Catherine deny in the press that Joseph had ever struck their children, then read transcripts of interviews with Joyce in which Catherine had spoken of just such incidents. I watched as Joseph would repeatedly look the press straight in the eye and swear, "We never beat LaToya or any of the kids." He'd then retreat behind the gates of his home and watch all his children walk the opposite way. In November 1991, Michael was about to release the album Dangerous, for which he had been paid $18 million by Sony Records plus 25% of the retail price for every copy sold. Now that's a motherfucking deal. How you going to sell decades of the Jackson 5 to ABC for just $10 million? Just $10 million? That's it? And Michael put out one goddamn album and he get $18 million and 25% of the retail price for every copy sold? What is that? What is that? Who formulated this deal? It's the Jacksons, by God. Everyone was expecting a blockbuster, and as usual, Michael was not about to disappoint. Word to the Bad was mysteriously leaked to a radio station in Los Angeles. Several days before Black or White's official release, both singles, Black or White and Word to the Bad, were dropped off separately in the early evening at the same radio station in brown paper bags. No note, no instructions. The station played both records, first Black or White, then Word to the Bad, over and over. Those were the only two songs the disc jockey played. The telephone at Cirque du Soleil began to ring as friends and business associates heard Bad and reacted. Jermaine walked around strutting like a peacock. In his entire career, he had never had his music played so much on the air. He was invigorated by the controversy and loved the intrigue of how the songs were leaked. Clive Davis, Diablo, president of Arista, was less than pleased, as was Jermaine's producer. The following morning at 10 o'clock, Michael came up the driveway of the Havenhurst house. We watched his arrival from our bedroom window. Jermaine seemed to welcome the opportunity to confront Michael face to face. When L.A. and Babyface had disappeared from Atlanta and we discovered they were working for Michael, Jermaine made repeated attempts to contact his brother. None of his calls were ever returned. This was his moment to speak to Michael, and he seemed ready for action. Let's get ready to rumble! Other published accounts of this confrontation suggest that Michael and Jermaine came to blows in the driveway between the guard gate and the recording studio. It was said that Michael physically attacked Jermaine, promising to kick his ass. Nothing could be further from the truth. You say what? Michael Jackson kicking ass? Girl, not even if he had the entire dance cast from Beat It and, what was that, Thriller behind him. Kicking Jermaine's ass? That would be impossible. When Michael entered the house, he and Jermaine went into the trophy room off the foyer and closed the door. A second later, Catherine went in to mediate their discussion. Thoughts were racing through my head as I waited for an explosion. First, I knew we would be kicked out of the house. After all, Michael was paying for everything. The phones, the cars, the cooks, the maids, the security, the gardener, the pool men, the maintenance men, everything. Jermaine, you might want to, ease back a little bit, but them Sagittarians, they don't have no humility, girl. Then I remembered the miniseries. I knew Michael would never sign off on anything we did from that point on. And the way the contracts had been negotiated, he had approval over everything. Our agent, Rob Lee, telephoned. How could Jermaine do this now? Michael could pull the plug on the whole miniseries. I told Rob I'd call him back as soon as I knew anything. As far as I could tell, they weren't yelling, they were fighting. I could hear nothing but silence and an occasional thump, as if someone had banged his hand on the table. The telephone rang again. It was Clive Davis. El Diablo. Peggy, what's going on? He asked. I had to tell him what I had told Rob Lee. Basically, I didn't know anything, but said I'd call him the second the meeting broke up. The next call came from Jermaine's attorney, Joel Katz, in Atlanta. He had heard about the record on the news. What's going on? I heard this song has been leaked to the radio. What, has Jermaine gone nuts? He's going to kill his career. Again, I repeated my plea of ignorance and my pledge to call back as soon as I had any news. The meeting lasted a good half hour before the door to the trophy room finally opened. Michael left the house without saying a word to anyone. Soon after, Jermaine left as well. I immediately went running to Catherine to learn what had happened and tried to read the reaction on her face. I don't understand, Jermaine, Catherine said to me as we settled into chairs in the kitchen. He was so mean to Michael. Michael was crying at the way his brother was treating him. Michael kept repeating over and over, "Why, Jermaine? Why did you do it?" Catherine said Jermaine slammed his hand down on the table and said, "You're just mad because it's my turn now. Somebody else is getting some of the spotlight." Michael is so oblivious. In his heart, he's so good and genuine that he doesn't even understand that what he did by stealing, who is that? Babyface and L.A. Reid up from under Jermaine, that really hurt him. And Jermaine was banking on this opportunity to work with L.A. Reid and Babyface to rebuild his career. Michael just looked at it as, that's what I want, so I'm going to get what I want. He doesn't understand. Catherine said Jermaine slammed his hand down on the table and said, "You're just mad because it's my turn now. Somebody else is getting some of the spotlight." She said Michael just sat there and took the accusations Jermaine was handing out. When he did finally speak, it was only to repeat himself. "I'm your brother. How could you write something like that about me?" Which I think. I mean, even though Michael is paying all the bills, I still just think Michael could have had any producer in the world. You know, even though L.A. Reid and Babyface were super duper hot at the time, he could have had anybody. And then to make it so bad, he didn't even use any of the material that L.A. and Babyface prepared for him. I mean, would y'all be upset? I mean, I would be upset. I don't know if I'm going to make an album or a song about the motherfucker that's paying all my bills, but I would definitely be upset. Jermaine never responded directly to the question, but rather talked about the fact that Michael had never called him back about the L.A. Reid and Babyface affair. "Please, Jermaine, don't release this song. It's not going to hurt my career, but it will totally ruin yours." Now, I agree to that. You don't want that smoke with them damn MJ fans, okay? Or them Jan fams. You don't want that, okay? So Jermaine was a little tripping with that, okay? And this is before the internet. These niggas was writing letters then. "Please, Jermaine, don't release this song. It's not going to hurt my career, but it will totally ruin yours. My fans aren't going to care. Don't do it with Jermaine. For your own sake," Michael pleaded. Jermaine wouldn't listen. Michael had given Jermaine a roof over his head and picked up the expenses for the entire family. He did it gladly. He also allowed us the opportunity to televise the family's life story. It had been sold to ABC mainly on the strength of the Michael Jackson name. When Michael left, the last thing he did was give Jermaine the direct line to his trailer at the location where he was shooting his next video. He wanted Jermaine to call him and tell him that he had decided not to release the song nationwide as a single. When I learned he had the phone number, I begged Jermaine to call his brother and end the entire fiasco. I couldn't get Jermaine to believe how stupid he was being. "Hell no," Jermaine shouted. "This is what Michael needs."